Yo, what's up guys? Old School Dan here and welcome to another How Reg Park Trained video. In this video, it's about calves, so let's go ahead and jump right into it.
When he first started bodybuilding, contrary to what people believe, because he was known for his exceptional calf development, he actually felt that he had a dysplasia with his calves because they were much weaker than the rest of the body. So he just trained them, he pounded them every single day, and he would do 10 sets of 20 repetitions every single day until he started getting results.
10 sets every day, that is something I didn't know that Reg Park did. I know he did 5 sets of calf raises every workout, every full body workout, but I didn't know early on he didn't have good calf development. I did see a younger picture of Reg Park, and his physique was definitely not as developed as we see him today. But that's interesting to know that he is a weakness. I think it was almost every bodybuilder's weakness. Frank Zane, not Steve Reeves, Reg Park, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that's interesting.
I remember him doing that to me quite clearly. I said, "What should I do?" I also have this thing with my calves always, and he said, "I'll tell you what you do for calves. You do start at 6 sets of 20, which was unheard of. I mean, no one."
6 sets of 20. So this is something that I had picked up when I had not heard of 6 sets, but I did know that bodybuilders, Reg Park did do 5 sets of 20 when it came to doing 5 sets of 20, 25, 30, doing calf raises. Because I have his Mr. Universe course, and that's the amount of sets and reps he recommends in the Mr. Universe course.
That many repetitions and that many sets, and then he'd watch me do them, and then he'd say, "But you're not doing it. You're not firing the muscle properly. You've got to roll into that big toe, and really accentuate that."
Actually, the 6 sets of 20 is a pretty good calf routine of just standing calf raises because the amount of volume you receive every week would probably be 18 sets. And that's enough for any body part to grow. That's like the type of volume someone would give their chest or that back. And that's honestly what it really takes to get big calves. The amount of volume you put in every week. Because I remember when I was doing 8 sets of 20 for standing calf raises every week, for full body workouts, and that's like 8 times 3, 24 sets of calf raises per week, and that's a lot of volume. But especially because those calves need the volume because they're just stubborn muscle groups. You can't really get away with just doing 3 sets every workout. If your calves are very stubborn and small and they take a lot to grow, you can't really get away with like 3 sets every workout or every 3 sets on leg day. That's like 6 sets a week or like 9 sets a week. I think a good range would probably be maybe like 6 sets a session, maybe 2 to 3 times per week. That way you get 18 sets at the end. That's pretty good. I recently just started doing 8 sets a session. I think twice. I would do them maybe twice a week. My bone with the 3 times per week because those calves are just so damn stubborn, man.
Movement instead of just going up and down like most people do. So let's do what we were taught.
So yeah, do a set. The one thing Reg did, Steve, as you probably remember, is he didn't believe in changing the foot positioning. He thought it was good.
Interesting enough, because Steve Reeves actually didn't really believe in the foot positioning as well. In 2 of his books, they sort of contradict each other because in one book he talks about how you should change the angles of your foot positioning because it could hit different areas of the calf. And in another book, he'll say, well, that's just a load of garbage. And now Reg Park is saying that's a little garbage from the start. So it's a little confusing, but I had figured out in new research that almost the foot position doesn't really matter. It's just the standing calf raise with a regular position is probably the best. It doesn't really make much of a difference. But I don't believe in this idea anymore that you should change foot positioning like this, like though it hits the inner out and then outer and then just straight. I think just sticking to a straight is just so much more better. But that's sort of like an old school kind of like technique or myth that a lot of old school bodybuilders talked about, that changing the foot positioning of your calf would hit different areas. But I think that's just a waste of time. I think, like Reg Park said, that's a load of garbage. I think the best way to do it is just change a straight positioning.
But you try and keep it as natural as possible, because some guys, when they train their calves, they do sets with the toes in, sets with the toes out. He would just make sure that your feet were parallel with one another. and basically to almost think as if you had a wedge between your heels, so they couldn't slide in.
Right.
And you could focus on the area of the calf just by mentally focusing on which aspect of the calf you'd want to work, or by just rolling onto the big toe, like you said, or even rolling onto the little toe to hit a different.
So when you talk about the big toe, this stuff I've been teaching for the past maybe like 2 years already, that when it comes to doing calf raises and you want to get good calves, the main way to do it is to make sure you're rolling on that big toe. That's something I learned from Vince Strana, Larry Scott, Reg Park. It's just great old school information that's just been super helpful. And if you're having trouble contracting your calves, make sure you have that in mind. You're rolling up on that big toe, because that's what really emphasizes that calf activation or
Portion of the calf.
I remember him even nowadays again in the teachings how they discuss which part of the calf dominates, and how most people naturally roll the ankle, the heels in, because this is the stronger part of the calf and naturally wants to take the workload. So that was his whole theory about having a wedge to
create more balance.
Right.
Yeah, because we naturally stand and walk at a 10-degree angle, so this is much more dominant.
Right.
Yeah. So he'd always do it, and he'd lean slightly forward, so his shoulders would be more forward than his feet. And he would make sure that you do a full range of motion, and he'd actually do a 3-beat motion coming up, and then hold the contraction at the top, and then hold it at the bottom. So he would go 1, 2, 3, then hold it for a count of 3, and then he'd go all the way down and stretch it for a count of 3.
So about the 3 points. Now this is something I've been teaching for like a while now. I already made a couple of videos on it. How when you're doing calf raises is something that you want to do, because a regular just up isn't just really enough. It's not. I don't feel like it's enough to really get that and really activate that calf. Like something I've been teaching already for like the longest time is just the 3 points, where it's like I call it the double pump, which is basically you doing a calf raise and you go all the way up, but then you give it that extra push. So boom, so you get higher up on your toes. I think that was an interesting tip I learned from, I can't remember who it was. It could have been Larry Scott or Steve or Reg Park, but that's a really good tip that I've been teaching for a while now, and it works just great. That old school info is just, valuable.
And he would do at least 20 reps. Another thing he would always do is he'd always keep the knees slightly bent to put more emphasis on the calf and to take it off the hamstrings. A lot of guys today, they keep their legs locked.
This is something I've also been teaching for a while now, about slightly bending your knees so you get the stretch and you don't work so much of the hamstring. But
and you engage the hamstrings when you do that.
Also takes pressure off the back.
Yeah, it takes pressure off the back and the knee joint.
Right. Yeah, like most people you see in the gym doing this, it's not even contracting the muscle properly. You do 10 reps Reg's way, you feel it.
And this would work more in the upper portion of the calf, which is called the gastrocnemius, where the soleus is more underneath.
Also, another point I forgot to mention was the fact that Reg Park would teach people to hold the contraction at the top for at least 3 seconds. This is something I also learned from Frank Zane. I think Frank Zane's method is a little bit longer, holding it for 4 or 5 seconds. I can't remember, but I did do a video on that a long time ago back, and I don't remember when it was, but I did teach this already. But so this is nothing new to me and new to you guys.
Lower portion of the calf. So on that, you would hit that muscle by doing seated calf, but he would do both. Predominantly in the early days, he would do mostly standing calf. And then in between sets.
And this is true. In the early days, a lot of bodybuilders didn't do much of seated calf raises. There's a lot of standing calf raises, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jim Haslob, Reg Park, Steve Reeves, Frank Zane. A lot of these guys did more standing calf raises because they hit the gastrocnemius part of the calf, which is a good part of the calf to really develop mass.
To stimulate the blood supply, was he'd make a wedge with his hands like this, and just massage the calf to get.
This is an interesting tip that I've never learned from Reg Park, but there is another tip that I did pick up from an old school bodybuilder, man. I think I read this on the Titan Slacks of Days Bond, and it was basically about how you would do this calf routine. Oh, you know what? It might have been Chris Dickerson's calf routine, or I forgot who it was, but it might have been Chris Dickerson, where you do the routine and your calves are just like on fire, and then you lay down on the floor and you wiggle your calves in the air to shake the, you know, shake the tension out of there to loosen it up and to massage your calves. So like what John's about to say about the lactic acid.
The circulation in there, and to prevent the lactic acid buildup.
Yes, that's exactly what that bodybuilder, I can't remember his name. It might have been Chris Dickerson. I can't remember, but talking about how you should shake the calves in there to prevent that lactic acid.
Get to 10 sets, working progressively heavier each set. Later on,
10 sets does sound like an extreme amount of volume, where it would be, you could do it 3 times per week, and that would be like maybe 30 sets per workout, which I think is a little bit too much. I think anywhere between maybe 6 to 8 sets per calf work per session for calves is good enough. That way you can get 18 to 24 sets per workout is pretty good. If you can't handle what John is saying is 10 sets per workout, I definitely stick to like something closer to my recommendation, because those calves can get really, really sore.
And started to learn his body more. He started taking a different approach, whereby he would do the first set as a warm-up set and the last set as a cool-down set.
Right.
So he would go progressively heavier and then cool down at the end. But in the early days, he'd just...
That's an interesting insight, that he would start with a warm-up set and then end with a cooling down set. That's something I've never heard of Reg Park doing, but this is great because we're all learning more about what Reg Park actually did in his training from his grandson, John.
Work progressively heavier each set.
There was no way he was letting the calves get away with not being worked as hard as any other muscle in the body, which, people, it's an afterthought. And when he once looked at me and said, what about the back of your body? You have a back to your body, you need to work it. He actually grabbed my hamstring the one time and said to me, "You've got to work those, son. You've got to get those up." And he really did. But calves was his thing.
And the thing is, he'd always do it first in the workout, as you know.
Right.
Reg firmly believed in prioritizing.
The priority principle, something I've been talking about for the longest time, and something I was actually practicing for the longest time as well. When I first started doing full body workouts, I would always start my workouts with standing calf raises, because they were a weakness of mine. And it definitely 100% helped bring up my calves with just starting them starting my workout with them, because it makes so much sense, because you come into the gym fresh with energy, fresh with enthusiasm, and you waste it on a muscle group that doesn't really need it. You may not need it on your chest or your biceps, but some areas that really could need it could be the legs, the calves. Those are some areas that are very stubborn. Like the calves, definitely. That's exactly why I had always started my workouts with standing calf raises. It's just a principle I learned from Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I know he's not one of the guys that actually developed the idea, but it was just a great tip that I picked up. There's just so many great old school tips that you can pick up that are just truly legendary and super extremely valuable. How informative they can be even today.
Your weakest areas first, while your energy level was highest, you would be able to put more focus on it, because as you continue and you get fatigued, your strength level drops, your energy level drops, your concentration level drops. So it always prioritize weak muscle groups first.
Which, again, most people just get in and go biggest muscle group and forget the calves and the small muscles. So calves was his thing.
And he became world-renowned for his calf development.
All right, guys. So one last thing I want to touch on. Arnold Schwarzenegger basically did the same thing for the longest time. I can't remember how many hours Arnold Schwarzenegger put into calf training, maybe 1,000 hours or something like that, and how he would go into every workout and just start with calves and just exterminate them with heavy volume, heavy work, and that's what really got his calves to grow. I thought that was a pretty interesting point that John said about Reg Park, about the prioritizing the weak muscle groups as far as how information goes. But with that being said, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. With that being said, again, subscribe for more videos like this. Give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'm Old School Dan. I'm gone. Peace.